Okay, hi, hello, welcome back. This video will be a little bit different from what's been on my channel recently. I'm not doing a vlog today. I'm putting vlogging on pause this week, and well, the week's already gone past and it's time to post another video, so hence here we are filming. You'll know by the title of this video that this is essentially me talking about things I'm doing differently with my third novel. And I feel like this is a bit of an indulgent video because I don't know whether it's going to be that useful to you. It's more of a time capsule for me that I can look back on as my writing process continues to evolve, and maybe at the end of working on this book or when I'm into working on my next book, and kind of have this as a reflection of where I was at with writing at this particular point in time. And it's also in a way a retrospective on past habits and behavior and things that I've left by the wayside because they were not helpful and conducive to getting words on paper. So I'll jump in. I have 3 dot pointy kind of things that kind of came to my mind quickly when I brainstormed on this topic. I haven't really scripted this, so bear with me. But yeah, that's essentially the gist, so I'll jump in. A bit of backstory. I'm currently writing my third novel. It is contemporary upmarket fiction. Upmarket, if you didn't know, is kind of a blend between like literary and genre fiction. It's kind of like the midpoint between those two. So yeah, that's I'm not saying too much about it at the moment because as much as I have written nearly 40,000 words of this book, I don't know how I'm getting to the ending. I'm still discovering it as I write, so it is still very much evolving as it progresses, and I don't want to say something and then have that change in a later draft because nobody's looked at it. Like, it's still very early stages, so a lot of things are liable to change with it. But my writing history in terms of other things I've written, I have a historical fiction novel, which is my second novel that I'm currently querying. Still in the process of reaching out to agents and trying to go the trad pub route with that. And I have my first novel, which is literary fiction that I self-published. It's kind of a coming of age with dark themes. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of the products I've produced from my writing. So what I'm doing differently now I'm writing my third novel, is I am not stressing about days I don't write. And this may not sound that revolutionary, or it may, depending on where you are, where you sit on that spectrum of the opinion that people need to write every day in order to consider themselves writers. I at one point did use that kind of opinion to kind of beat myself with a stick on the days that I didn't write, and I would say for the entire process of writing my first novel, which took a good 3.5, 4 years, it did not help. If anything, it kind of just created this guilt and made it more difficult to sit down on the days where I did have capacity and time to write that novel. And in my second novel, what I found was I could do like I could have the goal of writing every day, but two things would happen. One, I would get a very low word count day because the only goal would be sit down and write. And when you have your only goal set at a low bar of just get a word on the page, it's very easy to get to 250 or 300 words, which is not a lot. For reference, I do that now in kind of 20 minutes. So it's not a lot of time spent on the project, and then say, oh, I can stop because my only goal was to get words on the page. So you don't make a lot of forward progress. And the other thing is, when you have a day when it all falls apart and you can't do your everyday writing bandwagon routine, it does become like difficult to get back on everyday grind set mentality. So now I don't go into writing with the attitude of I have to write every day, or else. I completely do away with that goal mentality, whatever you want to call it. I don't subscribe to it. I have a rotating list, of which writing is one of many things I do, and when I get to that point in the list again, I write. And if it takes me 4 days to get through the list, if I have a lot of stuff on, if it takes me 5 days, if it takes me 3 days, if it takes me 2 days, I'm not concerned about the interval between my writing sessions. So that is number 1 on my list. Okay, we have refreshed the storage on the iPhone, and we are now on to the second thing. The second thing is process thing. With my first novel, I very much wrote it in a way where I would go into it wanting to work on a particular chapter or a particular scene, and I would know the contents of that scene and I would keep working on it until I was at a kind of stopping point with that scene, or I had all of that scene written, or I had thoroughly edited through that scene. And what I found with my second novel is that doesn't always, your scenes are not going to be equal length, so that doesn't always work with the timing of everything. And so what I started implementing in my second novel a few months into the process, actually, when I already had, a few thousand words, I started saying the goal of the writing session is to write 1,000 words, and kind of very much sticking by that process, and that continued all the way up until the end and into the third novel now, that I use that method of adding 1,000 words to the draft. And it's very much a first draft kind of process, obviously, because when you're editing, you're not going to be adding 1,000 words every time. But what I do is I finish that 1,000 words, and if I have the middle of the sentence, I finish that sentence. And sometimes I'll have 1 or 2 more things in my head, 2 more sentences after that sentence, and I allow myself to write those, but then I stop. And if it's in the middle of a scene, then I have a really warm draft to come back to, and it's kind of like it's already in the oven. And essentially, I don't have to reach very far for what happens next, because what happens next is the characters continue the conversation they're having, or the events of the scene that was already happening continue to play out. And I found that really coming to a warm draft like that really reduces the lag time I spend at the start of each writing session getting myself back into the project. I'm a real fan of reading the last 2 paragraphs you wrote in the last session and just going from there and not allowing yourself to go back too far into earlier, stuff that's over here, or allowing yourself to read from the beginning when you're writing a novel is crazy every time, but each to their own, I suppose. So yeah, that's kind of the 1,000-word cutoff point is really a strong rule I have for the writing now. And as I've gotten better at getting to the 1,000-word cutoff point, and as my time to get there has kind of reduced over months and months of doing it, I have kind of toyed with the idea of upping the target. And that feels like a big decision for later me to make. So far I haven't done that, because initially the 1,000 words was taking an hour and a half, and now it takes about an hour. And even though it takes less time, I'm still not confident that on a really, really awful writing day, I could get to 1,000 words in an hour. It might, on a bad day, it might stretch out to longer. So yeah, that is kind of the process side of writing that's changed with this third draft. That's thing number 2. Okay, so we're on to the third and final thing I had on my list that I was doing differently with my third novel. This is something that crept in. It's not a problem I ever encountered during the process of writing my first novel. I think because I had such a clear idea in my head of what I wanted in that novel and what I didn't. From the outset, I knew every instinctively plot points and what each chapter was going to kind of contain, and the trajectory of the entire arc of the character journey. But with my second novel, this kind of bad habit crept in of stuckness disease, almost, I'm going to call it, where I would sit down to write, and it would be in those times where I wasn't in the middle of a scene. So I had ended the scene in the previous writing session, and I had to come up with what the next scene was or what happens next in the story. And I would just have this almost very brief moment of stuckness where I wouldn't know where the story went next. And because of that moment, I would say, I'm stuck, immediately. And that would be the end of the writing session. And my solution to that problem which sounds very, very juvenile, and I can admit to this, would be to go to my critique partner and be like, I'm stuck, I need to talk through, I need you to read, what I've last written, I need you to brainstorm with me, I need that external support of that other person to help me get through this point. And something I found writing this novel is I haven't had that. I think I've had that feeling once or twice, and I've had one phone call, but it was a regular occurrence in the previous novel. Reliably every 5 to 10,000 words, I would get stuck disease. And I think I've gotten better at allowing myself to sit in that stuck moment and that emotion of I don't know what happens next, and sit with, because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to stare at a draft and not know what to write next. And the ability to do that in a regular way over and over a long period of time is something you have to train and kind of push yourself to get comfortable with. And I think certainly with this novel, I've gotten better at sitting with the stuckness, so much that I haven't needed to show this draft to anyone yet. I haven't needed to go outside of myself to, I have had one crash out phone call, but you know, one crash out phone call in 40,000 words, I'll take that. That's not a bad, like, rate of crash out for kind of writing a novel. So yeah, that is kind of my list. As I said at the start, this is kind of an indulgent time capsule video, and maybe when I get to the same point in my next novel that I'm writing, I'll do the 4 things I'm doing differently. And yeah, I hope you found this in some way helpful, or maybe it just helped you feel less alone in your own process of drafting. And as valuable as the time capsule aspect of these videos is, and being able to look back on past me and be like, oh, I'm proud of her, like she was there and now she's here, the most valuable thing that I've gotten out of this posting on YouTube thing is being able to talk to you guys about writing. So I would love it if you would leave me a comment and let me know how your own project's going, or if something in the video, yeah, because that's the word, Freya, video resonated with you in some way. Let me know. Yeah, I think it's interesting to look at how your your writing process evolves over time, and kind of look back on earlier versions of yourself that kind of had a different attitude and procedure and kind of different methods to your madness of writing. But yeah, that is going to be it for today. I will see you in next one. Bye.